Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And this podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I'm your host, and I have a special guest I'll introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I want to ask you to do me a solid. Leave a comment or a question and to like, subscribe, and share. I have amazing guests on my podcast, and the only way I can get their voice out even larger is with your help. So remember, leave a comment, ask a question, like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this is Ozzy. Is it June?
Ozzin, yeah.
What's your last name?
Ozzin June. June is the last name.
Okay, Ozzy June. Okay, so I wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
So
sure.
we, Ozzy and I really don't know each other. So this is an amazing time to kind of dive into the us sitting on the sofa and having our glass of wine or a cup of tea and just having a conversation. I do know that she's in Switzerland and she's a world traveler. I'm super excited to hear a little bit about that. But is there something that you want to tell everybody about who you are before we just having a conversation?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ozzin. I'm known as the Wealth Queen, and I am here to activate women to make money now to create $1 million movement while they know that they deserve it all. I saw in the online space that sometimes people sacrifice other parts in their life, and the Wealth Queen experience is about telling you you're worthy of love, thriving relationship. You can build a multi-million-dollar empire and still create something that is in your fulfillment and purpose. And what I'm now up to is to help coaches and other women who have a service to scale to millions, and at the same time build a business model that supports their lifestyle.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
Yes.
It does. It does. So, tell me, how did you um become, before we get into that, because that's pretty juicy stuff, how did you become this world traveler?
Yeah, sure. So I think that traveling is something that I've always enjoyed since I was 13 in my teenager years with my mom family.
So
And
your
for some
family, you
reason,
all traveled a lot?
yes, when I was growing up, like living still with my mom and my younger sister, like we traveled a lot, like at least like once a year or twice. And we are not like from a rich family, but I found always a way to be somewhat resourceful and to find the ways through friends or other ways to save up the money and travel. And I found so much, like so many of the inspirations through conversation with different people, with cultures. It made me realize like deeper gratitude levels because I've been in parts like, for example, Nepal. I was there last year and I've got like 5 parasites from there. I was like
Oh,
totally sick from this travel. And
oh
I
my
came
gosh.
back with like 2 weeks of diarrhea and like a literally bad experience. But it humbled me so much. And I realized, wow, damn, the air here in Switzerland is insane. Like the quality of living in some areas is so different. So I felt through all these conversations, different people and cultures, I've gained wisdom and leadership levels where I could not gain from somewhere else. So that part, it impacts me so much and I love it. I totally love it.
Oh, wonderful. So where are you originally from?
Originally, I'm from South Korea and I
Okay.
grew up in Switzerland since I was 6, 7 years old.
Oh, okay. All right. So your home base is Switzerland, and then you just travel
Yes.
to other places, right?
Yes. Now I connected also through business because back then I was not at all doing business, but I started my journey when I was 18 years old with entrepreneurship. And since 3 years with my boyfriend, we're traveling the world, we're doing cool stuff. And at the same time, I get to do my business and help people around the world.
Oh, wow. That's impressive. That's impressive because you don't look old enough to be able to do all that. But I guess age isn't just a
I
number,
get that
right?
a lot. Me
I bet, I
looking young.
bet. It's funny because my daughter, um, she's getting close to 30. And just a couple of years ago, we went to the library and the person we were going to get a library card, and the person said, well, you need to have your mom come over and sign for you. She said, what? And she said, well, you can't sign up on your own unless you're 18. And she said, well, I'm getting close to 30. She said, oh, I'm sorry. But she gets that all the time because she looks very young. And so
Mhm.
she still gets carded for everything. People just think she's a little child sometimes, and she's really short and small. So that kind of helps some too. So you're a small person, it looks
Wow.
like. So that probably kind of
Yes.
adds to
No,
that
but
too,
it's
right?
yes, but no, it's a good part. I think that it's better to look younger than too old, I guess.
I know,
And I get
yes.
that all the time with my boyfriend, like he looks like very young. So we could stamp ourselves like 15, 16 sometimes. And when I tell them I'm running an empire, we're doing multi-millions, we're doing this movement and this, people are like, sorry, please, like because they just see the volume. And I tell people it's not about the size, it's about the volume that you bring to the room. So
That's right. That's right. How you
yes.
show up.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. So, how did you get into this money thing? Were you in a place? I think if I remember, I saw something that you said that you were in very deep in debt, right?
Yeah.
And you were trying to figure out how to get out of that and create something more. So, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So when I started out, as I mentioned, when I was 18, I did multiple things. I started out as a copywriter, digital marketing, but I felt back then it was more the chase around the money. Like I was just Googling, how can I make money online? And it
Ah,
came from
okay.
the fact that I was living with my mom that was like divorced. So I ended up just living with her. Then I grew up with a Swiss stepfather and they divorced again, unfortunately. So there was a lot of hard time emotionally going through, but I wanted to support my mom. And I knew there was more than just this paycheck to paycheck. So this is where I got into e-commerce, affiliate marketing. I've done a bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes things didn't work out the way I wanted to, including a scam and a 75K scam around my own business partner.
Oh
And I
no.
took things on my credit card, I scratched things together, loans, and all of this, it add up. So I was in six-figure debt. And then in
Oh, okay.
April 2021, I told myself, like, I cannot continue like this. Like, there's something beyond than money. Like, money is important, but I didn't find fulfillment, for example, in e-commerce, just sourcing products. So I realized the power of transforming people's life. And I realized I've been doing it since ever, but I just awakened to it, like that this is a thing where I can make money and be in fulfillment. So I scratched again a loan together, and then I got like 10 grand, which I invested into my first one-on-one mentor back then. And within the first 8 months, I could create my first six-figure cash. And for people
Ooh,
who are like, whoa, how is this
wow.
possible? I think
So
for
let me
me,
ask you a question before you keep going. Well, I got a couple questions.
yeah, sure.
So go back to this business partner that you got all messed up with. What happened? What did they do did they just take your money? What happened? Well, you said it was a big deal, right? So what happened?
Yeah, I was back then in New York and it was a partner where we set up like he was doing backend and all things around TV channels. And I've been doing, as always, my coachings and helping people with marketing and so on. So we collaborated on that part. And since we are doing this in a team, like we agreed that I would like push the things forward and sign on people. But once, and this is where again I've learned the lessons,
Mm-hmm.
write everything in contract.
Yes.
Like he took the payment on his link, on like the clients paid him, and he was supposed to transfer the other 50% to me. And while I delivered my
Um,
parts and certain things, like he suddenly like didn't give me the money and he just blocked me and disappeared from one day to the other. And the whole
Wow.
thing was so strange. Like I felt like even when I was in America that I had to go there because he was from Louisiana. And I don't know, it's a weird thing about my intuition. And it just told me like something tells me like don't go there. But how odd is it? Because like he's your business partner. And before that, I had a good feeling about this. But then as I go, like something was really off. And it was right. And I didn't really listen to that in the last minute. So I was like, hey, there's the payment link, and we used his, and I trusted him so much that he would transfer me the other. And this is where my part got totally lost in that. And I've learned my lessons. And then since
Wow.
then, there were
Yeah.
other scams, obviously, that I've been through, but I got smarter in detecting them and protecting myself in business.
Yeah, one of the things I always say is that we have things that happen to us all the time, and if we can figure out a way to take the lesson out of it and not the hurt, then we're doing really good, right? And learning to listen to your intuition is like huge. And
Yeah.
sometimes when we don't listen, that smacks us on the head and says, "Okay, next time you better listen."
Yes. No, but it's so true. I think so many things that we go through in life, whether it's relationship or like other things in business, like deep down, I feel like we know, especially we
Hmm.
women, we have this special emotional intelligence and empathy and energy around that. But I think there's just this part that it's like that wants to believe in something else, and we
Hmm.
just keep going. So I really feel like often the things can be avoided just listening to that intuition and inner leader in us.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, when you think about it, sometimes we still have to go through those things to learn those valuable lessons so that we can teach others, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure when you're working with people on money, you're addressing some of that same stuff, right?
Yes, no, that for
Yeah,
sure. I'm the
yeah.
typical girl. I think in a lot of things in my life, I had to learn like in a very hard way. I remember when I grew up and there was like a fan. And then as a kid, I would always go to my mom and I would put my finger inside and out. And my mom would say, stop. And I would never stop. And then one day she took my finger and put it inside the fan. And I was not hurt too much, but she was like, this is how you learn. So every time I provocate something around, I felt one of the biggest favors that my mom did is just to let me experience that for once. And then I
Hmm.
was good. I never touched it for the rest of my life.
Yeah. At least you learn your lessons, right? Because there are
Yeah.
some people out there that, and they may be listening, I don't know, that do something, they feel the pain of it, and then they just do it again, and they do it again, and they do it again till it gets so painful that then they finally have to figure out a way to get out of it. And so it's amazing when you can learn your lessons early, right?
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So as you were getting over, I mean, that's a lot of stuff to get over. And I will say, I'm impressed that when you're that far in debt, you can get a $10,000 loan. So kudos to you for sure.
Yes, I mean, to give the context to it, the debts were privately taken. So I
Oh,
asked
okay.
part of that also my mom, and I felt very bad for that because again, she's not like rich neither, and it was like last money and as a single mom, but I told her this is my vision, and then a part of my, emergency savings fundings from her, and then when I scratched the stuff together, I could. And I felt back then on a spot like, oh my God, I cannot mess this up. Like you're already in six-figure debts, like you're taking another thing. But there was something in me, and I knew that I'm gonna make so much more. So staying where I am was not the solution. And then like for 2 months, I showed up. I kept implementing what the coach has been telling me. And then after 60 days, I got my first $5,000 clients and then my $10,000 client. And from there, I got like momentum through master classes and the things that I did. And I also realized for the audience, I think the context is so important because before that, I was again doing digital marketing. And I think it's a compound of my skill sets and of the things where I showed up before. And this is where some people get it wrong and they're like, oh, she must be so smart doing all of these things. And it's not true. So it's like a lot of repetition that I've did. And I think all of that led to that breakthrough that happened in December 2021.
Yeah. Well, not only the knowledge and stuff that you have, but you had the fortitude to ask for help from an expert to help you. And that's
Yeah.
what I talk about it all the time that, and forgive me for saying this, but the people that have been watching me or listening to me know but we can't see our own shit. We just can't. So when we're
Yeah.
deep in the mess, well, we can't figure out how to get out of it. And so it takes having a coach or somebody like you, like me, to kind of be up above and look down and say, hey, this is where you're at. But if you'll go over here, then things will be better. Or you go over here and it's like this. And so we can kind of help guide people. But what people do a lot of times is they stay in their mess and they spend all of their energy trying to figure out how to get out of it instead of asking for somebody for help. And
Yes.
so, you did that pretty quick. And that's amazing because there are people that, go for years and years and years struggling in their little space trying to figure out something and not getting help at all. So that's amazing.
Yeah. No, but that's a huge piece. I love that you address it because I think a lot of the women that I work with, when they come to me, they're always like, I've done so much, I've tried everything, I'm doing this and this. And I'm always like, how about we're not here to do more? Like, where can we switch the questions to how can you do less and delegate more? Where can you ask more for support? And I think while we logically know it, like doing it and being vulnerable, I think this is the part where people have a lot of shame beneath that, like shame of like not being honest about where they at. So the first thing that I usually do with my clients is always cleaning up the shame around money, about their current situation, and then making them not feel like judged, but like this is where you're at and the truth will set you free. And then
Mm.
from there, usually their new power that is beneath them, like it activates on a level where it's beyond their circumstance. So I think it's a huge piece of work around shame.
Yeah, shame is huge when it comes to money. And it's amazing, because when you think about it, um, most people are raised in households where that's not really, money's not talked about,
Mhm.
at all. And it's like, I even saw a commercial earlier today that what I thought was interesting because it was an I don't even know what the commercial was for, to be honest with you, but the gist of it was very powerful. And there was this boy that his dad was with him, and everything he was doing, from putting a light up to hanging a bird feeder and all these things, his dad is telling him how to do it, right? So they're sitting on the deck and they're talking, and the boy asked his dad, he says, Dad, I'm really curious, I'm wanting to do some stuff with my finances and everything. So I need some advice on money. And he says, I don't like to give advice. And
Mhm.
because, most people won't talk about it. And I don't know if it comes from the fact that they feel so out of sorts with it themselves that they can't talk about it, or they're embarrassed about it, like there's that shame that comes in. And so many things are at play when it comes to money. People, especially, when you get into, so many people think that money is the root of all evil, or they think that money is not spiritual. They have all of these things that have been said over and over and over. And then one of the things that was brought to my attention one day, and I thought it was really powerful, is that when you look at like people with money, when you look at Hollywood, all of the major villains and all of these different things that you see are always the ultra wealthy. They're the villains, the ones that are taking everybody and want to take over the world and do all these things. So it even Hollywood gives this impression that if you have money, you're a bad guy. And I even had a conversation with someone just yesterday that was thinking about hypnosis, since I'm a hypnotist. And one of the things that he was talking about is he wants to be more prosperous, right? But on the other hand, he thinks that
Mhm.
prosperity is going to change him because he saw it happen to somebody else. And so he was
Mhm.
one of those people that he wants it and he's pushing it away, and wants it and pushing it away. And I think a lot of people do that same thing. And so I shared with him, and I'm sure this is something you share with your people too, is that, and everybody that's watching or listening, is that money's a magnifier. If you're an asshole when you're
Mhm.
broke, you're going to be an asshole when you're rich. That's just right?
Yes,
And
I totally agree with that.
yes, yes. And so, like, I was telling this gentleman yesterday, this person that he saw, once he got money, he was like a cutthroat and he was wanting to take advantage of people and, and he was stingy and all these things. And I said, yeah, I said, but you get to choose who you are when you get the money. It's a choice. It's not something that money comes into your hand and suddenly that changes you. You make those choices. So you just have to choose. Are you going to be a good person and expand out with money? Or are you going to be a person that contracts and is not nice? You get to choose. And it's not the money that does it, it's the person.
Oh my God, that's such a great point. And what you mentioned before about Hollywood, I think this is a very good example around conditioned story about stereotypic things. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, movies and things like it impacts people. And this is
Yeah.
where I hear a lot of people like growing up and doing my entrepreneurship. I had a lot of friends who say like, "Oh, you're so rich, you can totally afford this," and are like, "Why are you so greedy?" And there are people around it like money is root of all evil, it's bad, never take debts, and all the money belief shifts. I did an entire training for TED around that to rewire people. And I find that I just had also training today on this, and I took the example of the CEO that is top of a company and many times feel that when you're at the top, you are lonely. Like you're an asshole for having so much money and to want to have more. And it's often lonely up there. And I told people, for me, I never bought into this belief. I always believe that the more I go up and higher in my journey of becoming a better version, I found that the conversations I have, like such as this one today, like
Mm-hmm.
it's getting deeper, better, more meaningful. I
Yeah.
become a match energetically for the people who are in their power. And one thing that I stopped in my marketing and doing things is just pain marketing or like, like pitting people down. Oh, you're struggling. But I'm here to speak into people's power. And the
Yeah.
moment I did
Beautiful.
that to light up and to speak into power, I felt that I've been calling up the women that has been ready, the woman who knows she's strong and she seeks for that. And then helping people to rewire those things. Because as you mentioned, I think it's really an amplifier. And I changed the story and I had to do so much work because, my mom has been telling me since I was young, money is all the root of evil. And then biblical things like, this is not good, you cannot go to heaven. And I
Yeah.
told my mom, even if I create $1 billion, mom, like I'm here, I'm going to create leadership academies, I'm going to give back to third world countries. And guess what, money is important, but at the same time we know that like it's as you mentioned, the who behind that, like what's your identity, who are you while you're doing it. And I found that piece has been always the same. While I was in six-figure debt, I've always knew I've been this trailblazer in me, this powerful person. So I felt the identity didn't change. It just got deeper in my expressions of being more naked of who I was already.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I'm loving this conversation too because I getting to dive into a bunch of stuff. So
Yeah.
to me, it's like the interesting thing is one of the money blocks that I used to have is because I have well, my uncle is since deceased, but I had an uncle that was very wealthy. And he was my mentor. I would have conversations with him about money and business and everything, and I loved it. But he was a man that was very focused on his business. And so
Mhm.
he, always talked business most of the time. And then he spent a lot of time with the business and the employees and all these different things.
Mhm.
And he required his employees to be spot on and there and everything too, right? And so I would see him and I wanted to be wealthy like him, but I kept thinking, oh, I want to have my free time. I don't want to be married to the business. I don't want, and so I had this block about it. And it took me forever to get to that place. And it might have even been after he passed away. I can't remember. But suddenly I got to this realization that he was that way in his business because that's what he loved to do. It wasn't
Mhm.
like I have to do this to make the money and everything. It was that he enjoyed that. He enjoyed, being the main person in the business and being in control of all these different things. That was what brought joy to him, right? And
Mhm.
for me, I wanted a business that I made the money, but I still wanted to have the liberty to travel. And he traveled, but I wasn't paying attention to that. I wanted to have the liberty to have time off and just like take a month and say, hey, I'm not working the business for a month. It's going to be fine. I'm going to go do this. And so that's what I wanted. But since
Mhm.
I was comparing what I wanted and seeing the vision of him, I was doing that. I want it and pushing it away at the same time too. And it's
Mhm.
amazing when we can begin to see some of the things that going on in our mind that actually has this vibration that's just repelling money, right?
Yes. No, but thanks for sharing. I think it's a great piece of like looking how other people do and thinking this is the one way. And even if you
Mm-hmm.
know it's not the only way, you're still subconsciously programmed that should be the way. So I'm curious to know like what helped you to build a business model and the way you approach things in the way that you want and not like your uncle or anybody else. Like what happened from that point where you had the awareness? How did you shift that?
Well, the way I shifted it was just recognizing it to start with, and then
Mhm.
starting to see how I am able to be a little bit more relaxed. And then I did hire a coach to help me with all that, so that I felt like then the movement that I was making was on purpose movement instead of wasting time
Mhm.
and then chastising myself for not doing the task for my job, for work, for my entrepreneurship. And so I wear a lot of different hats, and it's taking time every day to just kind of let intuition guide me as far as this is where I really need to flow today. And this is where I can leave that today. And it's taken a lot of work to get to a place
Mhm.
where I can do that. And I'm not where I want to be yet by any stretch of the imagination. But I love where I am as I'm growing. And I think part of it for me got into this being peaceful where I am, and saying, where I am is okay. And then I don't have to mirror what he did, just take the lessons that he helped me with. Did I answer your
Yes.
question?
No, but that's great. I think it speaks into self-awareness. And I think again, like the change for everything, it has to start with awareness. And I found also in my journey from all the trainings I took, like understanding this and deepening these parts has been the big thing, because I can see like what are my pain avoiders. And as you mentioned, like you want something, and then at the same time, subconsciously something holds you back. And I
Mm-hmm.
think one part that helped me to go from the depths to my 6-figure cash months, I think the biggest thing was to clean up this inner work that subconsciously held me back. And back then, I wanted to skip this work. I just thought, like, come on, give me the
Mm.
strategies. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to implement. Like, my mindset is good. And I really realized once you skip this work, like, it will catch up on you. So I couldn't skip this. And what held me back for a long time, I think it was also part of my mind was a bit scared because I had so much debt. I was like, oh, if I make a little bit money, I have to give it all away. People will run behind me. Like all the people want to ask for money and the other parts around that part. And then also, I think for me, my work that I had to do, it comes from romantic relationship that hadn't been working out really well. I'm a survivor of kidnap and rape that
Oh,
happened to me
wow.
in 2019, and I went missing, and I was like in school missing out for 1 month. And when this happened, I felt it had a major impact on me trusting guys and learning that
Oh, well, I
again.
can see why.
And then also around like from that part, like wanting to be that woman that is independent, this boss girl babe movement where I felt like I don't need a guy, I can do this by myself. And I felt that because I've been so hurt, and I've learned through my healthy relationship with my current boyfriend to transition into a healthy relationship, and then learning that I can be still a powerful woman while I can also lean into a guy, to be in God's design between men, women working together. And I think that has been the most beautiful and blissful journey in my whole life that has gifted me. And at the same time, it added to me in terms of money as well. Like I can make so much money and still have a guy treat me as a queen and I can help him. And it was a fear in me that I cannot date guys who make less, or they have to be a specific type of person. I need to protect myself from getting hurt. And there was a lot of like fears around that I had to work through while I built my business. But the
Oh,
good
wow.
news is that I felt the inner work comes with the action. So I think that putting myself out there, sharing my story of rape and kidnap the first time last year at Kensington Palace for other women, I think that part set me free, and it helped me to forgive myself and obviously the guy who did this to me, and inspired other women to speak up their truths and their things.
Oh, wow. Wow. So this happened when?
So this whole thing happened in 2019, and I've
Okay.
been like in toxic relationship with that person. And then things really escalated after 2 months already. And I knew like this is not gonna work out. It was too late. So the person ended up being a stalker, coming to my school, following me everywhere, and then kidnapping me, like taking inside the car. And I was literally running away through through ways at 2 a.m. in the morning, being in places where I didn't know. And it's a long story, but I got, thanks God, like found by a guy that was a local police. And in that way, I could return back home. And yes, and I've learned a lot. Like it gave me a lot of trauma during this hard time, and a lot of the dark hours that I've been months in bed where I couldn't get out, like in
Yeah.
pain where I couldn't move my jaw. But I think the thing that really kept me going from that moment, although it has nothing to do with my business, I felt it has everything to do with it, because it showed me during these dark times the pain that was so unbearable. And I knew that there are women out there who go through something similar. So I flipped the selfie stick towards other women, and I was like, I have to get through this so I can help others with that. And when I heard one day a message from a woman that I didn't know on Instagram, she texted me that she is the new girlfriend of my ex, and he did the same thing to her, and he
Oh,
destroyed her car with an axe, and she said she wants to commit suicide. And when I heard this from a woman that I didn't know, I knew I had to do something about it.
yeah.
So after 3 years of court trials, I decided the next day to publish a video publicly about my story. And obviously, many people were shocked. They didn't know anything about that I was going through this. And then, from there, I tied this into the women empowerment, into I help people to make money, but also to heal and to still create a life that they love and not let these type of things define their future.
Yeah, wow, that's very powerful, very powerful. And the thing is that like you were saying about the gentleman that ran, gentleman's a loose term, that ran off with your money, you went through that, and that is part of what you empower other women to not repeat, right? And so
Mhm.
when it comes to relationships and stuff like that, everything, it's like nothing lives in a vacuum. So all of those bits and pieces of all of us are there all the time. And, we have so many blocks in our mind from the things that have happened to us, what it makes us believe about ourselves. And so
Mhm.
you are, and I'm sure you already know this, but you're pretty damn powerful, because that's a lot of stuff to be able to come through and and be good, right? But one of the things that comes to mind as you were saying that when you said this did the video on Instagram and nobody really knew, and I had hired a coach, a mentor, and he was amazing, and we had only I signed in for a long program, but 3 weeks in he passed away. And come to find out, I mean, he was amazing, but there was some kind of addiction thing that he was going
Mhm.
through, and nobody knew. And so I think sometimes we don't we see people's shiny parts, and we see, how they're showing up, but we don't know what's really going on inside. And I think that goes for everybody we see. Like if we go to the grocery store, and
Mhm.
the cashier is pissy, it's like, well, you don't know what the hell she's got going on. And then there could be one there that's all smiles and just as joyful as everything, and they may be going through something just as bad. And so there's no way to judge, or we shouldn't judge, but there's no way to know what everybody's going through. And the reason I'm wanting to make a point about this is because I want everybody to think about, give people grace and give people a little bit of understanding, because we don't have a clue what they've got going on. And I had somebody on my podcast the other day, and he reminded me of, there was an old saying, but if we were all sitting around a campfire and we could take all of our problems, and there was this big jug there, and you take all your problems and you put them in this jug, and then at the end you were supposed to take some problems out, everybody would get their own back because they wouldn't want to deal with what the other people's problems were. And so it's like, and that's very powerful when you think about it. Because sometimes we sit and we're really thinking about how bad things are or what we want to change and all that, when in a given instance we would keep ours over somebody else's in a heartbeat.
Yes. Wow, but what a powerful way to see that about, sharing people's problems. Like we do not know what other people are bearing. And I feel a lot of the powerful people that I know in my life who are like shining the brightest. Like I know certain people deeply in person, so I know the type of shit that they go through at the backgrounds. And I realize the people who laugh the brightest, they are sometimes the people that suffer the most. They are the ones that went through tremendous of sufferings and things. And I really think that how you lead your lows, it shows on how you can lead your highs in life. And I also realized that a lot of the things, that's why I changed my lens around that. When I see someone really successful and powerful and being happy, like I assume that they still have a lot of other problems that they are choosing not to show, and they're okay not showing that. But only because it seems easy to be powerful and to keep shining, it doesn't mean it's easy for them to keep their things together and to keep going. And I think this is the part where a lot of the people who are not doing the things that we do in the coaching space, I feel people who lack this awareness and people who are not really taking their life in hands to create something, where they are judging it really fast. Oh, she must be lucky. Oh, it's because you're just pretty. And, like guys that are getting very intimidated by the moves that I do and the money. And they're like, yeah, it's just because you're really lucky with that. And, not everyone can do this. And again, I understand, but I think this is something that I want to tell all the listeners, like you're capable of doing so much more than you think. And I think that every one of us has been given gifts from God. And I also realized the more gifts you have in your life, the bigger is your responsibility to serve people with that.
Amen.
And if not, then yeah. And I realized if you don't, then God will make you move. Like he will push you literally into that situation where you're doing it, and where, yeah, you're going to create a lot of the amazing things in life.
Yeah, I like to say that God will whisper in your ear and give you an idea and you don't do it. And then he'll get a little bit louder and a little bit louder. And if after a while you haven't listened to anything, it's a baseball bat, knocking your ass down. And then it's like, okay, now I'm listening. And so I think when we're smart and when we get smart, we start hearing things. We might not hear that first little whisper, but we hear the second or the third one. And it's like, boop, I'm paying attention. This is what I need to do. And, there's so many people that have amazing gift and talents that they don't do a thing with. And what a travesty, right? And so one of the things that you said, and oh my gosh, the idea just popped right out of my head because you said something just a moment ago that I thought was so powerful. I wanted to ask you about, and it'll come to me in a minute, I promise. But what I was thinking, other than that, was one of the things that I think that not only, there's the shame to overcome and that kind of stuff, but one of the things that I hear a lot that I think is powerful is that if we can't handle the little bit of money we've got, then that means we can't handle a whole bunch of money when it comes, because we haven't had the mental growth. And that's why so many people that maybe win millions in the lottery, that, within a year or two, they're usually broker than they were before. because they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any of that growth. And so I think it's important to know that we've got to grow into being appreciative of money and taking care of money. And one of the first things that I started doing to show my appreciation to money was, what I usually did was, I had this box in my closet. I threw all my receipts in there, whether
Mm-hmm.
it was a receipt for something I spent or something that I received, whatever it was, it all went in there. And at the end of the year, when it was tax time, I would begrudgingly get it all out, sort through it, and it would take me hours to get it all ready for the CPA, right? Um,
Yeah.
so finally I thought, well, this is crazy, because it would be so much simpler and I would be honoring the money that's coming to me in such a more profound way if I logged the money every at least a month. If I don't do it every day, I have my month out. I have a spreadsheet that I put everything in there. And then that way, at the end of the year, I've got everything already logged and it's just easy breezy peasy, right? And it changed so much about how I related to money when I started giving it oh God, I don't know if it's the love that it needs or the appreciation. I think is more of the
Yeah.
appreciation for the flow in and out, and writing it down, even if it looked horrible in the moment of too
Mm.
much going out and not enough coming in. Then I was at least honoring it and putting it down. And that was a big step for me.
Wow, such great thing. I think it's also like you paid more attention to money. I think this is a big piece. When I'm not doing good, like, and especially in the moments of debt, I felt like I had anxiety opening my bank account, like to see
Mm-hmm.
how much was in there. Like, you're like, holy shit, I don't want to even like deal with that. But you have to confront the reality at some point. And I think one of the things that was tough for me to learn was when I grew up, I felt for me, I was more the type of girl that loves to spend a lot of money. Like, I love shopping, I love this. And my mom and family members like sometimes told me, yeah, Ozzin, you're not really good with money. I think it's just really
Mm.
not your thing. And it's been a story that I bought into it even until now. Like, that I've been told you're not good with money. You will keep spending for the rest of your life, no matter if you make millions. So one thing that I had to condition myself differently is to get rid of this label that I'm bad with that, and I change it. I can learn it. And I think a lot of the women that I see, they're like, oh, I bought so many Gucci bags. I've been in a corporate job and I spent so much in that. And I tell people, and I still do, I still love shopping. I still do the things, but it's always like paying more attention to it. And then also, as you mentioned, like honoring where you are at the journey. And then from there, like having this courage to change the things. And that's been hard because the feminine part, where I see a lot of female business owners, are more in their intuitive emotional energy. And that's been how I started. I just made my first 5 grand, then my 10 grand. And back then I didn't have like a spreadsheet of things tracking, because, when you just start, you just have that one client. So
Yeah.
it's very easy to track things. And then at some point, when I started to hit 6 figures, I've realized I've invested into a team back end, and I had like recurring costs of $17,000 a month. And I was like, holy shit, how could I arrive to that point? Like, obviously I've been reinvesting back, but how can I be smart about this? And this is where the masculine part of my leadership had to come in, like KPIs, the numbers matter. How do we structure things? And that's been a very tough part, especially for me being a very artistic kid, visionary, intuitive. So I've learned to flow on both sides and pay attention to it, as you mentioned, and be grateful for the little wins so I can appreciate equally the big wins in the business as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing it. I think one of the things that is wrong may be the incorrect word, with the way things are right now, with because so much of the self-help industry, and I read the stuff all the time, so I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong, but when you read a lot of this stuff, it gives you the impression that if you say, I really shouldn't be spending that money right now, because
Mm.
I've got these obligations that I want to take care of, that then you're saying that I don't trust that the money will come. And so you should just spend it willy-nilly anyway, because you know it's coming back. And in some ways, there's some accuracy to that. But in a lot of ways, there's not. I mean, we still have to, in my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and because you're the money expert, certainly not me. But I feel like you still have to honor your obligations. You still have to
Mm.
be mindful of, if I've got $5,000 going out and I've only had three coming in, then spending that three is not helping me.
Mm.
Is that kind of what you teach, or do you teach something different? I'd really
Uh,
love to know.
no, I mean, obviously it's part of the things. Like, I mean, I help people to build their coaching businesses and their service-based business, all marketing and content pieces, how to convert. And since we're making money in business, like it is a crucial part of what I do teach. And I mean, I'm not here, obviously like a financial advisor to people. It's really more about helping people to structure things in a way that helps them to convert and create a better marketing. But one thing that I just share from what has helped me is that there is no right or wrong, like there are people like me being in a very vulnerable situation, and for them to invest into a mentor or in a program or whatever they want for their growth is sometimes more scary because you're not in a good situation. And it's just a neutral fact of life that there are costs of living for your rent, for food, insurance.
Mhm.
And I've changed this fact, like this is normal, like I shouldn't complain about this. This is like me paying, I have to pay things forward. But also, I think since everyone is so different, you have to understand for yourself how much of the pressure can you help like deal with.
Yeah.
Self-trust is such a huge piece of work, and the ability that I had to invest and take up so much debt was because I trusted myself so much that I would be doing more. And that part helped me to deal with the type of pressure. And I know that I'm the type of person that I thrive within the pressure. But some people, they get totally paralyzed. Like for them, it's too much. Like there are too many expenses. No way, I'm not going to spend another 3,000 on this. So I always say there are people who bet on their whole thing and they have families and whatnot, and they still take the risk. And for others, it's too much. So they need some type of balance, or people who transition. I need a part-time job or to keep the full-time job and have this sort of, so I'm in a better headspace to perform. And for others, they're very radical. 1 million, I don't care. This is for more. And that's why I'm saying like I believe in advancement. Sometimes your bank account has to go down in order to go up because you're investing in yourself. But as long as you don't give up, I always believe whenever I invest into something, the ROI is something that I choose and it exceeds it throughout the whole lifetime. So I never saw something as an expense ever. And I think with that type of mindset, like there is a type of fear. It feels very like scary to jump on big amounts, but I felt I was still safe. Like there was a part of me, it was still calm. Like it's scary, but it's calm. And
Mhm.
I want to convey this feeling to other women out there who are there, to not focus on the depths and like, oh, should I or should I not? If you
Yeah.
feel it's good intuitively, I always say like jump, take the action, and then operate not based on where your budget is, but where you're going to, like where's the vision, and then be strategic around that.
Well, that's powerful. And I'll say, I can get there sometimes, and then other times it's like I constrict and I can't handle the pressure, because then I
Mm-hmm.
have all these obligations. I have all these people, people depending on me and all these things. But I am one of the people that I keep a day job while I do the other things, because I couldn't just leap. I would be, because I feel like, for me, that just taking the leap and letting everything go and just going all in, burn the boats and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, that would put me under such pressure that I think I would show up for my clients in a needy way. And for
Yeah.
me, I have to be able to be in this place where I'm even flow, where if this works for you, great. If it doesn't, great. I don't want to show up as, oh man, I don't care what, you got to buy this because I got to pay my rent this month, and so that's how it shows up for me, is I know that it translates to the other person. And so I'm very, very mindful of that. And that's why I feel like sometimes for me, like I can only speak for me because I'm definitely not the financial expert, is that um, I see and I hear people all the time. It's like, just believe it's going to be there and it's going to be there. And to me, that gives me this vision of somebody just sitting in the floor waiting on the money to drop from heaven. And they're not taking any actions or anything like that. So that's kind of where I feel that there's a disconnect with some of the self-help, because you still have to take action on whatever that intuitive thing is that comes to you. And I think a lot of people don't do that. They just wait for it to happen. But for me, like it kind of it will constrict me really tight if I've got too much going out and not enough coming in. And I don't like the feel of neediness. And I'm sure that's some kind of money block too.
Yes, for sure. I mean, thank you so much for sharing this part. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I call this in one of my programs called the money game. And there it's all about reprogramming those belief systems, but especially what you mentioned, especially in the coaching business where our work is correlated of us getting directly paid, and where it's measured in the coaching industry. Hey, I had a 20K months, I had a 3K months. Like people are always like months to months. So it's very tempting to look at these milestones of like the monthly income. And I'm very like also like I've been operating like this as well. So in the beginning, I was like monthly target, and it felt like the next milestones. But when I stopped doing it and I stretch it to a long-term vision and movement, and I've realized that collapsing time around that is more than just, about the numbers. So I had to detach myself, my worthiness around the numbers, around the money that is in the bank account or whether it's not in the bank account. And then another thing is around banking on people when it comes from a place of needs. And this is a huge piece where I feel where we sometimes don't want to, but it's hard when you're in that vulnerable place, because again, people are telling, I have bills to pay, like I am under pressure. How can I not be needy in a way and feel this pressure when I'm in that? And that's why, again, it comes to the point, everyone is different. I believe that if you have self-control in this leadership, a lot of things is possible. But if somebody feels better placed, like going to a 9-to-5 job, juggling part-time jobs, and there were times in my journey where I had to get a job to sustain the things until stuff worked out, I felt shame around it. But then as I went and I tell people there is literally no shame, like congrats to you for, taking responsibility about yourself, going to a job that gives you stability and coming from a better place of like, I'm not needing it. And when you speak into that power of like, hey, like, are you struggling doing this? There's a lot of the frequency in the marketing where you market again to pain and you're calling in needy clients. And I've had that when when a lot of the clients were a reflection of me, no money, they were in the same shitty situations and other things. And I was wondering, how is it that I attract such clients? And this is where I had to change for myself of like, I have to operate from power, market from power, speak into that part. And this is where I tell people, look, your money is none really of my business. I'm here as a coach to help you and guide you to build out your business. And the self-led woman, I trust that she is resourceful and she will find a way. And how much of that, like she will know. She knows what's best for her. And in that way, I started to attract women that were self-led, no matter if they were in a more vulnerable situation or women who were doing already pretty good and wanted more. And I think that's the piece that I've learned through the work of like not banking on people to get the cash, but banking on like we're here at service and not detaching ourselves to a person in business, to do and work together.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you are working with someone, do you normally work in groups or do you work one-on-one?
I do both. So I right now the one-on-one mentorship where people can work with me on 3, 6, or 12 months basis. And then I also have programs. One of the signature programs is called the Micro Celebrity Program. It's telling
Oh,
you
that
on
sounds
how
fun.
you
What is
can
that one?
dominate your industry
Uh-huh.
and be iconic as a coach. And I break things down how you can get from 10K to 100K cash months and beyond. And then I have other programs around, like called Le Regard. It's about your happiness, fulfillment, purpose, the money game, another program called Bread, and multiple others.
What was the
And the
last one
reason
you said? The
about building yourself and also the energy behind the things that you do, and also my leadership program. So all these other programs are something that people can buy, on demand. They get instant access to it. And I did that because in my own journey as a coach, I realized that many times people never watch the videos. They never finish the stuff that they invest to. So
you're breaking up. I don't know if it's your microphone or
oh
what
wait,
it is.
hear me
It's
now?
you
You hear?
keep coming and going out.
Wait a minute. Can you hear now?
I can.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, so I was just saying, like, the way that I built my micro celebrity program is more in a condensed and compact way. And then I have the sales, the messenger, how I do even 6-figure cash months calls, and how you build a brand where your personal brand does the sales for you. All of these things are there. And then the modules around it are more deeper modules, like for people that have other parts they want to deepen. And that's why there are other things that come with that. Yes.
okay. That sounds pretty interesting. And so there was a thought that came to me when you were talking about one of the other things. So give me a second. It was like, um, so what you're saying, because I guess I misunderstood. I was thinking you were helping people with money, but really you're helping them with their business and the money is a byproduct.
Well, yes. I mean, it's part of the work as a business coach. As a
Okay.
business coach, where I help people is to build and scale their businesses. So initially, I started out just with helping coaches, consultants, and then business owners with a service. And now everything that I do, like my zone of genius, is in sales and messaging, and it ties into a bigger word that's like marketing around that and helping people with that. And since we are making in business money, and where people struggle sometimes, the conversations I've been having with my one-on-one clients, they go beyond strategies or structures or like, hey, this is the perfect scalable offer for you. But like, we're having this infused talk where we speak emotional intelligence, your purpose, what are the money blocks, like all these things, like people don't even know. And that's what I love the most about my work, is to see who they become in the process. Like, being an integrated life coach almost, and talking into the things is part of my work while I serve mainly businesses. But it's the person who evolves around that that makes the money. So it's just a piece of the big work that we're doing, and we have to clean it up in order for them to run a successful business.
Yeah. And and it's funny because I was talking, I go live in my Facebook group, which is called Stand Up and Stand Out. But the one of the things I talked to him about this morning was, even when I was doing weight loss, the first thing I would tell my clients to do is declutter their house, get rid of some of the stuff that was the stagnant energy in the room, and to make way for these new ideas and these new things. And so it sounds like you're kind of doing the same thing. It's like this is where you're at, and these are all the obstacles that look like they're in your way. Let's move them out of the way and start working on this. Is that right? I can't hear you. Mm-mm.
Oh.
Now I can hear you.
Okay. No, I was just saying that yes, obstacles and addressing them and being aware is part of the work. But again, I think it's about helping people refocus on certain things. Like for example, again, pain is important, but oftentimes people know their pain. So I want to speak more about what we can do from there and what are the new perspectives to create the type of wealth. because I think people sometimes focus way too much on their struggles. I'm here, I'm overwhelmed. And oftentimes it's just a small thing that they needed to hear. Like overwhelm comes from the feeling like lack of clarity. And then people are like, I'm overwhelmed. And sometimes they need just this one input and it clicks with them. And then going back simply by the basics, like keeping things really stupidly simple where people overcomplicate. And that's why when I have the micro celebrity coaching program, it's like people sign up and then there's everything I break down, all the how-to questions. How do I set up my profile? How do I make sales? And I realized over the journey, I've been repeating the same questions, the response 1,000 times. That's why I just recorded everything in a condensed way. And then when I speak more into the mentorship questions, such as how do you navigate your feelings when you launch these things? I have a lot of self-doubt or a lot of what if questions. So deeper questions around that, but I want that people take my programs first because it teaches the how-tos, the foundations. And some of the people who are ready to go big, from the get-go, they usually just go into the full experience with me, one-on-one coaching and the program alongside. But for those who just want to start, like, they're good. Like all my teachings I know from A to Z is literally inside the courses. And I have a deal where they can join the Wealth Queen experience. And this is for 1 year. You get access to all my programs for a lifetime. And this is where people sign up and then from there upgrade where they want to be or come into my coachings.
Okay. Well, just for those that are watching or listening, then I'm going to have when I publish this, I'm going to have it in the description. I'm going to have all the links to everything. So they can just click this active link and go straight to checking out all your stuff. And I'm so excited that you were here and you helped me to get some clarity on some of the things that maybe I was a little bit off's not the right word, but maybe the mindset wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be, right? So thank you for that. And you're a beautiful woman, and you've got your I can tell from talking to you, you've got an amazing energy and you're very powerful in what you're doing. And so anybody would really be lucky to be able to dive into some of the stuff that you've got. So I appreciate you being here and sharing all of that.
Thank you so much, Vicky. It was really great to have this conversation, and I'm glad that we could, talk very unfiltered about those things. And also, I want to let you know for the audience as well, I have a free Facebook community where I share weekly free trainings on the things that I do to attract clients, to get out of your head when you feel overwhelmed. And if you want to join, I can also, send you the link and people can join. I have free
and
groups
we can
as
put the
well.
link in the description too, but what's it
Yeah,
called?
sure. Yes, I'm gonna send it to you. And and I'm looking forward to be in, to invite other women who are listening to this into my world and to lead in your power. I think that's the last message I want to share, that your mess is often your message, and the parts that you feel ashamed to speak about are the parts that is your $1 billion pitch. I really realized it's been the biggest thing, and it's the part that people need to hear the most. So when you're doing that, you're doing a big favor for other people to live in their truth.
Yeah, beautiful, beautifully said. I love that. So I'm going to say thank you again, and then I'm going to leave everybody with my favorite quote. The best way to predict the future is create it. So what are you creating? So with that, I hope everybody has a blessed day, and make sure that you like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time.